This week on Africa Weekly, we'll hear the stories of the Mozambican refugees fleeing brutal unrest, and from the stretched authorities in Malawi trying to help them. We're off to Benin for a day of dance, sacrifice and prayer as believers celebrate Voodoo Day. And we'll meet the Tuareg women bringing a musical tradition back from the verge of extinction. Here are this week's top stories. Tunisia has been rocked by clashes between police and protesters angry over unemployment and poverty, 5 years after similar scenes sparked an uprising in the country. In response, the government has announced a nationwide curfew. The week following a brazen Al-Qaeda attack on a hotel in which 30 were killed, leaders from Benin and Chad visited Ouagadougou to pledge solidarity in the fight against terrorism. But Burkina Faso is still grappling with internal unrest, months after a failed coup by forces loyal to former President Blaise Compaoré. On Friday, these soldiers raided an arms depot close to the capital, injuring one soldier before the army regained control of the warehouse. A UN delegation is in Burundi this week, in an attempt to encourage peace talks between the government and the opposition. On Thursday, the diplomats were met by pro-government protesters telling them not to interfere and insisting there is peace in the country. That same night, one person was killed and another injured in violent clashes. Killings, beatings, sexual slavery and cannibalism. These were some of the crimes carried out under the command of former LRA chief Dominic Ongwen, according to war crimes prosecutors. The Ugandan rebel leader is facing 70 charges at the International Criminal Court, where the prosecution is trying to convince judges that there is enough evidence to try him. The bodies of Kenyan soldiers killed by Al-Qaeda-linked militants in Somalia have been brought home. President Uhuru Kenyatta led a memorial service for the victims with a defiant speech.
The Friday attack has only renewed our determination to destroy Al-Shabaab and all terrorist groups that threaten Kenya. Every Kenyan must understand that this is a war.
South Africa's Western Cape has been ravaged by a series of wildfires, with strong winds sending the flames ripping through vast swathes of land. Fires are common in the hot, dry weather, but firefighters say up to 40% of the recent blazes have been caused by arsonists. Mozambican refugees are flooding into Malawi by the hundreds, escaping government forces they say are torching their homes in the search for opposition supporters. But once in Malawi, their problems are far from over, as the under-resourced authorities struggle to cope with the influx.
Mozambican Malita Elias fears for her life and that of her daughter. Her husband brutally killed by government troops, her crop and livestock destroyed. She has vowed never to return to her country. Along with hundreds of other refugees, Malita had to travel 5 days in the scorching sun to reach a refugee camp in Kapise, a village in southern Malawi.
I will never go back home. There is no peace there. As I speak, there are many people running away from my country, coming to this camp. So until there is peace back home, I'm not ready to go back soon.
Sporadic clashes between government forces and Renamo, the main opposition party, have erupted since June in Malawi's Tete province. Mozambique's civil war ended in 1992, but Renamo has refused to accept the results of the 2014 elections, and its leader has been claiming some provinces of the country. Government troops have been accused of burning homes and barns full of livestock and maize in response.
It's a sad situation back home. If they don't kill you, they'll rape your wife in front of you. It's tragic.
New refugees are registered at the camp as asylum seekers, yet that's not the end of their ordeal. The camp lacks food and water and is solely dependent on aid agencies like Doctors Without Borders and the United Nations Children's Fund. Meanwhile, Malawi's government says it doesn't have the resources to help, and wants Mozambique to find a solution.
Possibly we need to engage into more dialogue with the Mozambican government and see what is being done to make sure that this problem doesn't continue.
The Mozambican police deny the refugees' claims, yet more asylum seekers arrive at the camp daily. Their only hope that talks between the government and former rebels bear fruit and bring peace to their province.
This is the sound of the imzad, a single-chord violin played exclusively by Tuareg women in Algeria. According to an old belief, men risk a curse if they play it. The instrument has gone out of fashion among the young, so Khawlan Al-Amin has set herself the mission of reviving it.
Young people are only interested in television and the telephone these days. When I was younger, I lived in the desert. We took the time to learn to play and enjoy the instrument.
The instrument's discreet, refined lament traditionally accompanies poetic songs about the feats of past heroes. It was also played at courtship meetings, lasting long into the night. But by the early 2000s, only 2 women in Algeria still played the unique instrument. In 2003, Save the Imzad Association was launched, and now the instrument is even on the UNESCO Cultural Heritage list.
For us as Tuaregs, the imzad is the best instrument. It's an expression of history, of violence, peace. It expresses our culture.
The association boasts a recording studio, a dance studio, a stage for performances, and a workshop for making imzads.
When I first arrived here, I met a woman called Sebt who used to make imzads before I did. I watched what she was doing very carefully until I started to make them myself.
The dried out half of a calabash shell is sometimes even picked from the centre's own garden. The work here ensuring the music of the Algerian desert will stand the test of time.
Mysterious offerings, chants and sacrifices. Benin's National Voodoo Day harks back to the country's traditional beliefs before Christianity and Islam were brought to West Africa.
On the 10th of January every year, we come here to commemorate with our brothers to celebrate this festival and be in communion with our ancestors.
The annual festival began in 1994 after Benin's government overturned a decades-long ban legitimising beliefs that have long been demonised by Christianity as witchcraft. Believers call both on their ancestors and on the elements of earth, water, wind and fire. Here at the coast, they're praying to the goddess of water, Mamiwata.
We are praying to ask for good things. If a person has no wife, that he will find good women. If a person has no husband, that she will find husbands. That's why we are praying here by the sea.
As a result of the slave trade, voodoo practices spread from West Africa to the West Indies, Brazil and the United States. According to the last census in 2002, 17% of Benin's population practices voodoo. With presidential elections scheduled for the 28th of February, officials are keen to educate these believers.
We elected representatives have a responsibility. We have to educate our elders. We must help them make a choice between several candidates to decide for themselves who will bring a better future and development.
While some traditional chiefs have told their followers how to vote, most are calling for a peaceful election, a message of reconciliation true to the tradition of voodoo.
The 11th edition of La Tropicale Amissa Bongo Road cycling race kicked off this week in Kango in Gabon. The race aims to bring together professional cycling teams and African national teams. Next week, we'll meet the creators of Nigeria's newest superheroes, who want to prove you don't have to be white to save the world. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.